Every band has a story. Big bands such as Metallica, AC/DC, Queen, all have well-known, well-covered stories. But what about the small bands? What about the bands that didn't get a full chance to shine, who only played dive bars and broke up before they were able to make it big? This is the story of one of those bands, and this band was formed 20 years ago this past January. Every band has a story, and this is the story of Brainfreeze.
So I think I first came across you guys. I met Tufty Matt at a random birthday party and ended up going to the cartoon. He stitched me up. So it was the first time I'd ever got gothed up. And went to the cartoon and I had no idea who anyone was. And went and sat there and randomly I met Dave that night, I met Chloe that night, I met a few people from school as well. I can't remember who now, but met a few people from school, and it was just it was rather surreal. And then started hearing the bands coming on. I don't remember much about that night. I mean, that was my first night out in a club on my own, I think.
Through you, Alex. It was primarily through you, because I knew you from Fairfield, and then you were like, "Oh, come see my band. We're playing at the cartoon." And the cartoon in itself springs together so many memories for me. It's hard to pinpoint one down, but you were like, yeah, come down and see the band. I believe you were playing with Weeze's band on the occasion.
It's all a bit hazy. I don't remember exactly, but I think that I met a bunch of you somewhere one day, and you invited us to a party at Weeze's house, I think. And that's where I met you all. But I think that's the first time I met you. I'm not 100% sure.
We met them, or I met them, along with Sean, at Louise Cooper's boyfriend's party.
Luke.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And do you remember what happened halfway through?
Something with some like BB guns or something?
Yeah.
We hung out in his living room, and I think I broke his shower. And then he was called Luke or something.
I think so.
And then he had some friends who were like scarily into warfare and arrived in like SWAT gear and firing pellet guns at people. And it was like, who the hell are these losers?
Yep, I remember that.
And one of them shot. Well, I was sitting on the floor cross-legged, and one of them shot me in the bloody spine, and it hurt for days. I should have called the police on them, seriously.
I don't know why I don't remember the actual image of it, but I remember people talking about that. I was just very excited because I was at a party with loads of people that were 18 or 17.
And yeah, we met Emily and Holly, and I sort of became friends with them for the next few years.
Yeah, because he was only a little bit older than. In fact, I became really good friends with Alan because we were kind of slightly closer in age, maybe, and also just because we became good friends. But yeah, I remember that. But yeah, I remember being very excited being at that party.
Well, I think I really discovered you guys and got into you was later on because me and Sean struck up a friendship. I can't remember where Mash comes into this because Mash, or Michael now, well, she was I think I met her at the cartoon, and then she took me to Fairfield, which is where I met everybody in the light of day.
Well, it's most definitely because I used to hang out Fairfield, as it's known, which is the little patch of grass and cement blocks outside Fairfield Halls in Croydon, and that's where all the grungers and the skaters used to congregate, and that's where the members of Brainfreeze used to congregate, and I suppose that's how I was introduced to that group of people, and so that would be my best explanation for that.
I mean, you definitely formed already when I'd met you. But now I'm just trying to remember how I met you. I don't know. It must have been sometime around Fairfield, and whenever I kind of joined that group and started hanging out there, Brainfreeze was, I mean, everyone knew you, everyone knew them, and it was, you'd go down to the cartoon. If you're playing, you go down to the cartoon because that's what you do, unless you're underage, in which case you try.
But yeah, so I ended up going down to Fairfield and meeting everyone, and then I struck up a friendship with Sean. I know how now because do you remember Mel, Sean's girlfriend?
Yeah.
Well, I knew her in the Army Cadets. Another weird thing, and me and my mate Dave, not Posh Dave, bumped into her one day. I think we just hooked up like just randomly, and we went over to her place, and she lent me System of a Down, Toxicity, the album. She lent me that, or we listened to it, and I remember thinking the first time I ever heard that album, I was like, I'm never going to be able to understand all the words or sing all the words to this album. And now it's slow as anything; it doesn't feel like anything. But yeah, so she introduced me to that, and because she was going out with Sean, because me and Mel used to see each other in the cadets or whatever. But then she introduced me to Sean, and Sean was a bassist. I'd just got a bass guitar, and I think we just struck it off. I remember his blue mohawk. I think that was round about the time that I met him. And I remember him coming around to my house, and ironically, that bass guitar there, when I got it, it only had 3 strings on it, I think, and he broke one of the strings on it. So I only had 2 strings on it for about a year before I really...
Brainfreeze were formed on Saturday the 20th of January 2001, when friends Alex Loveless, Sean O'Shaughnessy and Dan Pantony were on their way to the Cartoon Club in Croydon to watch a band called Small World. Alex and Sean had been thinking about forming a band in the weeks before this, but finally decided on this day to make it official, and spent the rest of the night coming up with a name. The name they eventually settled with was Mutant Mammoth.
I've never really been able to decide whether I was a rocking raver or a raving rocker. I've always been on the fence with it, and I go through stages where I focus on one for a long time now, and then some genius like Liam Howlett turns up and fuses them together.
Yeah.
And gives me industrial. But maybe I got such a wide scope of. I mean, there's things that don't even make sense why I like them both. Like, so you're talking about Wagner on one end, sort of heavy, tense orchestral music, and then you go down the other end and you've got someone like Desmond Dekker doing a bit of rocksteady or old school ska, but done Navarone and that kind of stuff. It doesn't make any sense, but it's like, if anything, I've never really singled anything out, because I'd just like to have it's probably like an OCD, or I'm not willing to close anything out. I always want to leave my options open.
Yeah.
And that's probably where
But Sean was a very attractive guy. I don't just mean physically. I mean, he was a very friendly person. I'm not saying you're not, but you know, he had a sort of air about him, and he was kind of the closest thing we had to a heartthrob.
He was the cool, quiet one on the bass.
Yes.
During
and
the
then
set,
Mark
and then
joined,
he'd go get drunk.
Mark joined and was the even quieter one.
Yeah. But it's okay, because me and Smeggy made up for that.
Yes. You had the fat one that wrote all the songs, and you had the good-looking one, and then you had the fun ones. It's classic boy band.
I kind of knew Sean around, because he was a little bit above me in secondary school. He was at the same secondary school as me, and obviously, like, I'd see him around at Fairfield as well, when we used to hang out at Fairfield where all the skaters were. And
there were 3 stages how that happened. I can remember 3 distinct things happened to make it work, and one of them was you and I. I think Dan Pantony was involved in the conversation as well. In fact, I know he was. Who else was there though? Must have been Forbin.
I can't.
Oh, was it Alex Galley? It might have been Alex Galley, actually. We were talking about the early, because we went to a Nirvana tribute band. And they were really good. And in my head I was thinking, actually, the Nirvana tribute band are better at Nirvana than Nirvana at Nirvana. It was a really good night out. But, as you're building up to that, it was just a long night. And we were in the corner there, just having a chat about things, saying I was up for it. I was always thinking about it. You kept mentioning it beforehand, which put the idea into my head. But I honestly wasn't thinking it was going to materialise properly. I say yes to a lot of things with the intention of doing it.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of times things just fizzle away and it just doesn't materialise. But this one, I thought this one might happen, because you were pretty determined. And I realised that when I met you through
Sarah Oakes.
Through Sarah Oakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt was going out with Sarah, and Peter was going out with Katie, and different people like that. And we sort of, which is strange, isn't it? Because it's those 2, and then those 3, should we say? But then in time, I was with you guys all the time. Then I sort of left them behind, not deliberately, but I mean, they made their own beds.
I met Sean around 1999. He was a friend of someone who was going out with my friend at the time. We were like 2 big groups from 2 different schools. I went to one school, and my friend was going out with his mate, and so on and so forth. The two groups would like converge and hang out. I think normally Queen's Gardens in Croydon, and so like we started like chatting because we had the same taste in music pretty much, and we were able to continue from there, and it's kind of what led to Brainfreeze.
Because you'd occasionally come to my house and with a guitar, or you'd use the guitar I had at my house back when it had strings.
I remember it was a blue one, wasn't it?
I believe so. And we recorded a random Blur cover on my computer. If you remember that,
yeah, we did. And then, yeah, we did. And then on the same roll of thought, we did it again at my place with a couple of my Shelley recording bits and pieces. And it was we were working on like I look back, it's kind of cringy, but we sort of made our own version of Wonderwall.
I distinctly remember the moment, when we actually formed, because we were going past Kidderminster Road in Croydon on the way to the cartoon. I know that road well because my grandparents used to live there, and that's when we decided to form the band. And then we went into the cartoon to watch the band, and we just basically chatting about it the entire night.
Was going to go see Small World at the cartoon. I can't remember who they were, but Small World.
No. I remember who they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lead singer was like a blonde Bono.
I can't remember.
And then when I told him that, he punched me. Yeah, and I think I've got mine wrong there a bit because it was Small World. You're absolutely right. But the Nirvana gig was around then somewhere.
We probably were talking about it at a similar thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you remember playing Max Payne at my house for 48 hours? We didn't sleep for 48 hours.
I don't remember playing Max Payne, but I remember there was this weekend where me, you, Sean, Brainfreeze Sean, and this girl that you were trying to hook up with from Manchester, and her little brother.
Oh God, Leanne and Razzle, Randy, her brother.
Yeah, I remember us going Fairfield, then going to theirs, then going to a pub, then going to theirs, and then going back, and then we still didn't sleep, and then we went to the Soul Space album launch party.
And we were trying to get a McDonald's at like 6:30 in the morning.
Yes, that's the one.
Sean fell asleep in the tram tracks and almost lost his leg to the tram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That's not the night I was thinking of.
A few weeks later, the band began recruiting new members. First up was drummer Kim Wellard. She was a neighbour of Dan Pansney who introduced her to Alex and Sean on a visit to Skaterham, a skate park in Caterham on the Hill. They asked her to join, she agreed, and the band began to take shape.
I knew Kim at school, at Coulsdon High School, and she, for years 7, 8, and 9, had been a very popular, total, like kind of A squad member. I don't want to say chav because that means, that's like a negative term, but the hoop earrings, pulled back hair, but very nice.
Yeah.
So not a chav in terms of attitude, but in terms of look. And then almost overnight, probably over the summer holidays, she dyed her hair black and was into Slipknot, and that's when we sort of became mates.
Kim was this tough but very small goth girl or metal girl. She was like, I'm small, and she was up to about here on me, and she was obsessed with Joey Jordison, it's fair to say, and she was about the same height as Joey Jordison, so she seemed to be like quite parallel to him. Like she would, in fact, I think she would actually like basically focusing her career on Joey Jordison to start with, and it was cool.
Yeah.
How do you know? There's not a lot of difference between her and Joey Jordison, and she's wearing that mask, and she's obviously influenced by him.
Oh, definitely. She loved him.
Slipknot will come up. Yeah, so she was quite adamant. I always like that about her.
But it's not.
So, why are you doing that? I'm just remembering. Actually, I was trying to think of the distinct things I remember from that being in the barracks.
Yeah.
It was army barracks before that, wasn't it? Yeah. So all I can remember is most of the people there were riding in KT blades, and I looked a bit like the odd one up because I took razors.
I can't remember.
Most case were razors, and that's what I remember. I remember the cordial patronising me a little bit. I don't know why. I just found that really annoying.
Well, I don't know if you've seen what Skater Room is now, but it's so much cooler. Because they've converted it. They've taken a church and converted it now, so it looks amazing.
Well, heaven really is a half pipe.
Indeed, I bet that's what they played the first time they opened it as well. Totally.
The next person to join the band was Alan Horner. He was a friend of Kim's from school, and she brought him along to the band's first ever practice, taking place in Kim's bedroom in her mum's house in Godstone, which only saw her, Alan and Sean attend. During this practice the name was changed for the first time. We were now known as Genocide.
I mean, if you want anecdotes about Alan, John is the person to call. Like, I was looking through like old photos. Sorry, I couldn't really find any.
Oh, don't worry, it's fine.
Yeah, I've moved house like I don't know, about 12 times since then. But I did find a picture of Alan masking tape like John Matthews to the pavement, like outside one of their houses. Like, and one of them was like brandishing a stick, and I was like, what is fucking going on in this photo? Why do I still have this? What the fuck is going on?
We were in the same class at primary school, and the same class most of the way through. Yeah, we were in the same class most of the way through till secondary school, and then obviously lived right around the corner from each other as well. So you know, kind of fell into you know what it's like when you're a kid. It's not so much that you go looking for friends, but you kind of fall into a pattern of hanging around with the same group of people, and eventually that becomes friendship over time.
I was in the school band. Like the school had a loosely had a band, I think. But no, I had been playing guitar at school with a guy called Niall, who was on drums, who's now a ballet dancer, and a guy called Chris Hamilton, who introduced me to Nirvana, Foo Fighters, introduced me to metal and grunge and alternative stuff. He's now Brian Eno's producer. So that was an interesting the way that's turned out. But he taught me how to, because I played guitar, like classical guitar, with lessons. But it was my lesson, well, not lessons, but jamming with Chris Hamilton, where he taught me some Nirvana songs and taught me about riffs and power chords and songwriting, really. That was kind of what I was doing at school.
I mean, he always had quite a knack for it. Like anything he decided he wanted to try his hand at, I think when it came to that sort of thing, he always had quite an obsessive like personality. So he'd get it in his head that he'd want to learn a particular instrument or a particular style of playing something, and he'd sit and he'd practice and practice and practice until he'd until he at least got the hang of it, if not was actually happy with it.
Yeah.
As I was already said, he was very, very particular with stuff.
Yeah, I remember. I remember how he joined. We had like our first ever practice, like, and it was supposed to be me, Mike, and this guy called Dom. Dom just didn't fucking show up, so I just frantically, we was just in Scream, like, you know, paying for the room, whilst we were just standing there looking at each other. So I phoned Alan. Alan just appeared basically at the door, just played guitar, like doing his little noodling thing, and we're like, yeah, that'll do. So yeah, that's how Alan joined the band. There couldn't have been a major like gap between Waste Paper Basket and him joining Brainfreeze. Like, it must have been like a couple of months, maybe.
I'd been in another band for a while that was nothing to do with him, but she knew I'd been in a band. I'd been in a band called Waste Paper Basket that later on became Half-Assed, and we were a ska punk band and pop punk band. And that was through my best friend who lived at the end of my road called John. He went to a different school, and his girlfriend played bass and had a little band going at school. And then their guitarist dropped out about 2 weeks before a gig, so I stepped in and learnt all of their songs in 2 weeks, and did this gig at age 14 or 13, and it was like ridiculous getting into the club. Like, I clearly was a child.
He did a cover of the song "You Are My Sunshine." You are my sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got me to record some vocals for that, which I'm not sure if he ever actually used for anything. But I was never as into the musical side of things, but I was quite often there when he'd be like sort of practicing or recording stuff or anything like that. So I kind of had a like a passenger seat view of everything that was going on in his homemade recording studio. And
then she said to me one day, I think when we were probably in year 10, maybe, it must have been 2001. She said, "Oh, do you want to come and join my band? Of these two guys I met down the skate park." And then so that weekend, my dad drove me to Godstone, to Kim's house, which I will say, he then proceeded to do for the next 3 years, virtually every weekend until we started rehearsing elsewhere, to Kim's house. And I turned up with my guitar, but no amp. And Sean had brought a little battery amp that was about that big, and I plugged into that, and we couldn't hear anything, and we probably annoyed a lot of people in that street.
So how was it playing alongside Alan in Waste Paper Basket / Reason to Regret / Half-Assed?
Intolerable. He was awful. Nitpicky and pedantic.
A perfectionist, would you say?
Yeah.
Sorry, I said this to him the other day.
I remember once I had like this lip gloss thing, and it was like apple flavour. I like, quite nice. And I just kind of held it out to him, and he took it and then just kind of put it all over his mouth, like like on his tongue and like inside his mouth, and then just like handed it back to me. I was like, "Oh, thanks, mate."
The next week the band practiced again in the same place, which would actually be the home of our practices for the majority of the year, and this time would see a full complement of members, and in fact an additional couple of members were added also, with Joe Sargent joining Alan on guitars and Kaylee on keyboards, although her stint was very brief.
I was in band with a few mates. We used to go to Rock Bottom, practice a lot down there. It was kind of like pretty much a knockoff cover band, but with a couple of our own stuff. I was mostly playing like versions of Korn's Blind and Smells Like Teen Spirit, and just kind of like jamming out, kicking back, and just having a laugh with it. I think we probably had a name, but it didn't go anywhere. It's just more of a laugh. But, yeah, I've played guitar since I was about 10 or 11, just always self-taught.
I was introduced to Joe through Dan Pantony. He was there when we first formed the band, actually, and right at the start. And turns out he's pretty integral to the band. Yeah, he used to bring him out when we used to go out, because we used to just hang out, go skating occasionally. Not that I do much skating. I just on my blades, everyone else on a skateboard normally. But he'd bring Joe along, because he was like, yeah, come. It's my mate Joe. He's cool. I was like, and he was cool. And he was great. It was awesome to hang out with. And then he just he happened to live around the corner from Kim and Dan anyway, because Kim and Dan were neighbours. And then you had Joe around the corner. So Joe, Kim was friends with him as well, because they were local, and they brought him around to jam with us for that when we started practicing, and he clicked with the band, and it worked.
I kind of, because obviously me and Kim were around the corner from each other, and I think I like to think I kind of had a hand in some of her musical influence. But yeah, obviously being that close, just hanging out so much. I think she was part of it all before me, and we were just like chatting about it. So, oh, I should come around. I was like, yeah, I'll bring my guitar, have a jam. Like, I remember coming around and having like a bedroom practice. Like, that's nothing weird. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh, don't worry, I remember.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just kind of like, I remember sitting there just kicking back, chatting with all you, Sean, Alan, and just like, yeah, this is cool, man. And learning a few tabs that you guys had, and then it kind of just happened. I was an addition, so. I just love it, man. It's like it was good for me as well. It's almost like a brand new set of mates, like happened over like a small amount of time, and it happened quick. So like, it all kind of, I found the gelling process of playing with you guys just simple, like really, really simple.
Practices were cramped. They were small, cramped bedroom, drum kit taking up about 50% of it, and then you had 4 other dudes, a keyboard player once or twice, and plus friends used to pop in, come along with us and just pop their head in. It was cramped. I mean, I used to do vocals sat on the bed and into a stereo, so you could barely hear me anyway. But you'd get this drum kit in the middle of the room and then fit everyone else around them. It was a struggle. It was fun.
Oh, I just remember somehow Kim's mum was just ridiculously tolerative. I don't know how she put up with all of us just literally using her house as a band session. Just like, yeah, just go upstairs, whatever.
Yeah, like 4 hours every week, just loud noises.
4 hours, yeah. Yeah, we used to have our cut-off period. But no, it was great, man. I just remember because we used to, half the time we'd be doing that, and then we'd suddenly just go up to school and do like a little blading session around the school, or just kick about around South Godstone.
But the memory I've still got of that bedroom is that it stank, and I have to say that I now regularly get reminded of that when I walk into the rehearsal rooms of my students, because there is nothing you can do when 4 or 5 teenage boys are all in a room together making music. It's impossible to control that, and I feel sorry for the girls.
You got to
It
feel
doesn't
sorry.
happen with them.
You got to feel for Kim because it was just this one tiny girl in a room full of blokes.
She had to sleep there that
Yeah,
night.
exactly.
The band would continue practicing every week or two in Kim's bedroom, bringing together a selection of songs, even badly recording a few on tape using Alan's 4-track. The setlist was beginning to take shape and we went through another name change. This time we became Bloodfuck, and it was under this name that the band would have their first ever gig.
Because we weren't always Brainfreeze.
Mm.
Mutant Mammoth was the original name of the band.
Okay.
Mutant Mammoth.
In January.
Yeah, which is cool.
Right. I quite like. Wasn't there genocide as well?
Yeah, I missed the first practice, and I came to the second practice to find we'd had our name changed. And we'd become Genocide.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely.
Which is, yeah.
I mean, you definitely send a certain message when you decide that that's what you're going to name your band.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no tonal dissonance there.
Which is
Genocide. I remember a band called Genocide.
That one wouldn't have been us. But
There must be another band called Genocide.
yeah, we didn't have a gig. We didn't have any gigs under that name.
Yeah, I think they murdered Genesis stuff.
Like that's going to be some like properly filthy pun.
Yeah.
Like,
or black metal.
Or
or death
true.
metal. Death metal.
Yeah. Like hardcore punk or death metal. There's no in between. You've got to be one of those, or you can't pick a name like that.
Yeah. But that wasn't the worst name.
Oh my god.
And then after that, just before we played our first gig, we renamed ourselves again to Bloodfuck.
I like it.
Terrible
You can't
name.
beat it, can you? Early 90s, like late 90s, early 2000s, like bands.
Slipknot
like-
bands, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Could you imagine being called Bloodfuck? Like the expectations for that kind of name, like.
That's depressing. I don't like the imagery of that one.
Bloodfuck, nice.
I only remember because I read it that you put it, and I remembered instantly when you said it. I was like, "That was right," and that didn't last too long. But yes.
Well, you probably
Terrible
that's going to not get you a lot of gigs because of the name.
I remember you talking to me about that. Yeah, it's probably
Awful
not,
name.
it's not great, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lovely.
That one is.
When me and Beach start our Brainfreeze tribute band, we're going to be called Bloodfuck.
Bloodfuck Mammoth.
Yeah.
Oh no, Mutant Bloodfuck sounds better.
Get me free.
I don't remember the first time they all kind of merge into one, if I'm going to be honest. Probably in the cartoon, but I'm not sure.
Oh, don't worry if you can't remember the specifics. Don't worry.
No.
It's all good.
I definitely can't remember many specifics.
So it was before Toonfest. I couldn't tell you where. I couldn't tell you when. Because I know Toonfest was 2004. It must have been like a few months before that. So that was when the whole kind of Brainfreeze atmosphere descended on me.
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know if I can remember specifically. I'd hazard a guess it was probably the first Toonfest gig. I would assume.
I think the first time I actually saw the band play, it might have been one of the only times as well, that I actually saw you like play properly was there was I think it was the Charles Cryer Theatre.
Oh, we didn't actually play there. Was it? Did you come to Selsdon Hall?
That was it, Selsdon Hall.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was that. So you were at my 18th birthday.
Yes.
Right. There we go. I was going to say, oh, you think maybe you didn't see us? No, that's fine.
No, I definitely had seen you guys play.
I'm assuming the cartoon was when the first time you saw us.
Yeah, it would have been the cartoon, but I also saw the Eagle. I think it was only Cartoon and the Eagle. Maybe was there any other places?
We played a few. We played a few.
Alex's friend from school, James Forban, was turning 17 in July of that year and was having a small party. Knowing this, Alex saw the opportunity to generally annoy James into letting the band play the party, and eventually he relented and it was all booked. Bloodfuck took to the living room floor and rocked out what was no doubt an awful first ever gig before everyone enjoyed the rest of the evening.
I don't remember it really.
Oh, you don't. Oh, blimey! It's
I saw the pictures and I thought, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I didn't just forget about it. I don't remember it. I just don't remember it.
Well, I remember the gig at Thornburn's house was our first. I mean, it wasn't really a gig; it was a party, wasn't it? And there was probably about 8 people there.
That's about as much as the room could fit, really.
And we played in a living room in the middle of the day, and then effectively everyone just got very drunk. I was still only about 14.
Yeah.
And so was Kim, and that was it. I think that's my memory.
I don't remember too much of our first gig because millions of years ago. But there are a couple of things. Well, I don't quite remember it, but I imagine, obviously, with the name being different, I know we used to always start our sets with the song "Why," and the first couple of lines were, it'd always end with us saying our name is Brainfreeze and we aim to destroy. So it must have been really weird that one time just going, "We are Bloodfuck and we aim to destroy," and then going into the song.
You know, the one thing that stands out for me, which I always remember, and I know there's a photo of it somewhere, and I know there's a video of it somewhere, and I've not for the life of me think who's got it, but I remember playing, and in my brain it's one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I remember being halfway through a song, and Alan snapped his string, his low E, and I'd snapped mine, which was my 3rd string, so my D string. So the thing was, he was playing his part, and I was playing my part, but neither of our guitars worked for each other. So I ended up slinging my guitar over his shoulder and playing my bits on his guitar while he was playing his on mine, standing there in some weird kind of formation. Somehow the song still carried on. So I remember that being that was cool. It probably didn't look half as cool as I remember it.
The main thing I think I remember is the how it was set up. So we were in the middle of the living room, in front of the back. There was that. I used to live in the house, so after a few years later, so I remember the living room very well. But the back door was there, open. I believe that the back door was not the back door open, but the curtains were open, and the back door is a massive one because the whole encompasses the whole back wall pretty much, and then sofas surrounding pretty much, and just a crowd of people, of basically everyone who was at the party, just sitting there trying to enjoy, but probably not because it was awful. But it was nice to be able to play it in front of people, I suppose. I imagine it was terrible. It couldn't have been good.
I do remember a few parties there, or maybe I'm confusing the same ideas. One we had, maybe it was the summertime we had a gig there, and then we just sat out on the warm night talking in his back garden.
Possibly.
I don't know if I'm mashing that up with something. We've been there a few times, you see.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, most people who were around at the time will know that I didn't drink. Even from that young age, I didn't drink. I drank copious amounts of Coca-Cola, which that's had its woes in other areas. But I didn't drink alcohol, and so all the gigs we ever did, you lot would all drink after the gig, and I'd sit there with my Coke.
Being a good boy.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the gig more than the drinking. So that's my only memory of the first gig is it being hot, sweaty,
a living room,
probably pretty crap musically.
I imagine, yeah.
And then I think I didn't stay for a lot of the drinking. I think I left, but yeah, I think that's my memory of it.
Thankfully, there was one more name change before the next gig, and it would be the final name change. After another morning at Skaterum, some of the band members were eating ice cream outside the venue with friend Lewis Neves. Lewis ate his ice cream too quickly, complained he had brain freeze. Everyone had a light bulb moment, and the name was changed.
The day we changed the name to Brainfreeze, I have a quite good memory of that day, or the memory of that moment anyway. There was a few people there, but the ones I remember being there, me, Lewis, and Kim. We'd just been to Skaterum. We'd had a long morning skate, and we all probably sucked and were too scared to try and drop in on a half pipe or something like that. And we were having an ice cream in the shop outside. And Lewis, we needed a new name. We decided that like in the previous weeks, I believe, because Bloodfuck just wasn't suiting it. And as I said, we were having ice creams. Lewis was eating his, and he got brain freeze, and we were all, oh, like it was this, like everyone's like, yes, there we go, that is the name.
I remember us all having that click moment. One of us had eaten or drunk something really fast, or something. It's like, oh, brain freeze, and we all suddenly kind of went.
What
was that?
You must have been there.
Yeah, because I always assumed. I thought it was Macca's for like 20 years. I've remembered that as Macca's.
Of course, it turns out brain freeze was, in hindsight, is a very unoriginal name. Because there's a lot of bands called Brainfreeze, it turns out. We just didn't realise it at the time. That's why it's so bloody hard to like find old stuff about us, other than like finding the old website and stuff. Yeah, like 6 months after we split up, like after the reunion, and we split up, and there was another band called Brainfreeze playing from Bromley. And then like later on, I was doing my Drunk Reddit thing, and I found a band called Brainfreeze out in Switzerland. This pop punk, hardcore punk band that were quite good, if I'm honest. But yeah, of course, Beach is always willing to help the cause.
There was the band that came about. I think it might have been during the hiatus period where you guys had split up briefly. They were slightly younger than us, I believe, and they were also called Brainfreeze. I think they were Bromley based. Never seen them live. I think me and Darren were planning on seeing them live at a certain point, and we never got around to it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But they had decided to call themselves Brainfreeze, probably because they weren't aware of any other local bands called Brainfreeze. But they ended up playing the cartoon a few times, and it was slightly confusing because we all knew that you guys weren't together at that point, and there were sort of Brainfreeze gigs being listed on the cartoon's gig guides, which was odd. And I think we managed to track them down online. How we did that, I've got no idea, but we did. And I think they would play with other sort of similar aged bands, and I think I don't know how we tracked them down online, but we found their website, and I believe I would just harass them on their guest book, basically, by telling them things like they weren't the real Brainfreeze, and there's only one Brainfreeze, long live Alexio, things like that. I mean, really just to amuse myself. And they in fairness to them, they would come back at me and hold their ground. So, yeah, I can't really fault them for that. But they did come back at one point saying that they looked it up online on there was some online database of band names that they checked, and there was no signed bands called Brainfreeze, so they felt it was fair play that they could call themselves Brainfreeze. Yeah, you pointed out that I just kept commenting play Maggot sex on all of their videos. Was it?
Yeah.
Something
Well,
like that?
you pointed it out because you posted a screenshot of it, I believe.
Oh, did I?
I think so.
Wow, the things you forget.
Imagine right now I could just slide it in there, just a picture of that screenshot.
I think you should if you can find it. Yeah.
Certainly gonna.
But yeah, I do recall that, and I recall them eventually getting a bit annoyed and replying to it. I can't remember what they replied, but they probably replied with playing Maggot sex.